Hello ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you into the first Visual Basics for Application class in DSTL and Excel. Today, we shall be looking forward in writing a code that is going to run through each and every column and identify the first available row and fill it with data. Now, we're going to be using Visual Basics for Application to do this. And in order to write our code, we have to dive into the Visual Basics editor. And to do that, we have to press the shortcode Alt F11. Now, this is the Visual Basics editor, and in order to write our code, we've got to create a model. And to create a model, you can simply use one of the ways in which you're going to see right now by right-clicking on a sheet and taking up on Insert and then a model. Now, let's create a subroutine, because in each and every model you have routines, right? So let's create a subroutine. Let's say sub last row. Now there are no spaces when you're writing up the name of the model, right? So this is a model, and first thing first, we've got to define our variables, because in each and every subroutines you do have variables, and it's not always advisable for you to write a code or maybe a set of instructions that you don't define your variables, because when you don't define your variables, it becomes very difficult for Visual Basics to identify if actually you're talking about a number or maybe you're talking about a string. So the first thing first is that you define your variable. Now, in order to define a variable, we simply use the word dim, and let's just write into Excel and look at the data set. Now, and to write into Excel, you press Alt F11, right? Now, the first column, we do have numbers. The second column, we do have strings. Normally when you talk of a string, you simply talk of a word, right? And the third column, we do have dates. Fourth, numbers, and fifth, you do have strings. Now let's write into the Visual Basics editor and define the three data types that we do see on the table. Now, in order to define our ID, we can say dim ID as integer. Now we can say dim first name as string, and for dates we can say dim middle as date. Now we've defined the first three data types that we see on the table. Now the first thing first is we're going to start writing our code, and in order to write our code, we've got to go back into this table and understand in detail what we are out here to do. Now the first thing first is that we're going to start from the first cell and run down and then loop one cell and fall into this empty row and then request for data, right? So let's write in. Now in order to do this, let's put ID. Let's say range E1 dot select. Now, meaning we've selected the first cell on this sheet. Now we already at cell A1. Now at cell A1 we want to loop through down, so we can say range E1 range A1 dot n xl down dot offset, because we're offsetting by one. Let's go into the table. We'll be offsetting by one row, right? When it arrives here, it has to loop and arrive here. So definitely we offset by one row, and now no columns. So dot select. Okay, now let's try to run the code and see if it's going to work. Right now, let's run it. In order to run the code, let's press F8 to loop through each and every line. Now we've selected range A1, and when we loop through the last line, we find ourselves into the last available column in last available row in column A. Now this is the first set of instructions we've written. Let's go back and fill that space. Now, in order to fill the space, we can simply say active cell dot value equals to input box. We can use an input box, and we can say insert ID. Okay, and we can say active cell and you can see active cell dot offset. Now we are not offsetting by row, but we're going to be offsetting by column. So what you've got to do is to offset by column, one column dot value equals to the third row is a string, right, where you're demanding for the first, where we are demanding for the first name. So you can say input box insert first name. Okay, now we can do same, within Visual Basics there's some form of cheating that we do. So in order to rewrite all of this line of code, we just simply write and loop two columns to the right, and where we input our input box, so what is requested from us is the date, right? So we simply say input box, put up a date, insert date. Okay, now we can write through to do that for all the available last columns, but let's just stop at the first three columns. Now if you run this code, let's run it and then see what it demands. Let's press F5. They're asking us for an ID. The last available ID was number 18, so if we put 19 and we take OK, the last available, they are requesting for the first name, so let's say the first name is Hita, or let's say Hitu. Okay, and we are on the date, let's just say the 7th of the 6th of 2019. Perfect. Now this is our code that has run successfully, and this is everything that we've inserted, and from the Visual Basics editor we can see ourselves having 100% success in filling each and every last column in last row in each and every column. So in another way, we could defining these variables, we haven't yet used any of this, so in the form of calling them at a certain point in time. So we could somehow say let's create another portion in our code where we could somehow say id equals to input box, insert date. Now you don't want to define an id and use keep, right? So input box, insert. We can say insert first name. We can say first name. Now first name equals to input box, insert first name. We can say the next available one is date, so we can say detail equals to input box, insert date. Now we decide to call each and every of this at this point. So I have detail. Okay, now this is our code. Let's just indent it one more time this way. Okay, now the first set of instructions is that we define our variables, the second set is that we've set our variables, and the third set is that we are simply looping through the data set and filling up the available columns. Let's just test it one more time and see how it works. Let's press F5. Let's insert an ID. Let's say you're working on 20. Let's insert the first name. Let's say the first name is Hilda. Shita. And let's say the date is 3/4/2019. Okay, perfect. So in all, we've filled in the last available rows for each and every column that we see. So this is just the first exercise we're going to do for this channel, and if you've loved what we've done, then you can feel free to subscribe. Catch you next time for the first and for the second exercise we're going to be launching. All right, see you soon. Ciao.